can impact Houston.
And I'm Frank Billingsley. Plus, Bradley Bailey, curator and chair of Asian Art of the Museum of Fine Arts Houston, talks about their new exhibition opening Sunday.
And as Ernie, Frank, and I discuss the top headlines of the day, we want your thoughts, questions, and concerns. Give us a call, 713-440-8870, or email us at talk@hellohouston.org.
Hello Houston is made possible in part by founding sponsors John Bradshaw and Kathy Sanders, and by gifts from listeners like you.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. The government's latest big jobs report shows a cooling but resilient market against the backdrop of trade wars and government-wide cuts. The Labor Department says the U.S. economy gained 177,000 jobs in April. That's fewer than the downwardly revised 185,000 jobs created the month before. The unemployment rate in April held steady at 4.2%. As we begin to wind down a week of assessments about the first 100 days of Trump 2.0, we're hearing from voters in the blue state of Colorado. Colorado Public Radio's Bente Birkeland reports some Republicans are applauding the aggressive pace of the changes President Trump's ordered so far.
Frank Virginia is a retired small business owner and lives in the foothills west of Denver. The Republican voted for Trump. He's pleased with the administration's immigration crackdown and efforts to cut government spending. And he's okay with the tariffs, despite the turmoil. But he is concerned about the stock market.
But at this point in the process, I'm still comfortable in supporting the president and his policies, hoping that over the next 4-5 months, things will even out.
Virginia says he doesn't want Democrats to be disruptive to Trump's agenda just for the sake of pushing back. For NPR News, I'm Bente Birkeland in Denver.
The White House's national security leadership is going through its first major shakeup of this second Trump presidency as the team prepares for Trump's visit to the Middle East. NPR's Frank Ordonez is monitoring the fallout of National Security Advisor Mike Waltz's exit from the White House, a development that comes weeks after he and others were accused of mishandling highly sensitive information.
The White House is trying to put a good spin on it. President Trump says he's nominating Mike Waltz to serve as the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, and that Secretary of State Marco Rubio will serve as interim national security advisor while continuing to do his current job as well. And it's very unusual, I'll say, for one person to hold both major roles, and it's not clearly how it's going to work. And we really don't know who's going to replace Waltz either.
NPR's Frank Ordonez. The International Court of Justice completes a week of hearings today on Israel's conduct in the war in Gaza. More on this from NPR's Hadil Al-Shalchi.
More than 40 countries have been urging the UN's top court to condemn Israel for blocking aid to Palestinians. They say an Israeli law banning the United Nations Agency for Palestinian Refugees, known as UNRWA, is a violation of international law. The UN charges that the ban is a violation of the charter, to which Israel is a signatory. The International Court of Justice issues advisory non-binding opinions. There are no penalties to ignoring them. Israel does not abide by the rulings of the court, which it says is biased against Israel. Israel has blocked all aid, including food, from entering Gaza for 2 months, saying it is a tactic to pressure Hamas to release more hostages.
That's Hadil Al-Shalchi. It's NPR.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Tom Perumian. The severe weather that battered North and West Texas appears to be headed our way. The National Weather Service says the chance of large hail, damaging winds, and an isolated tornado are possible. The areas affected include Houston, Conroe, Brenham, Huntsville, Liberty, and the surrounding areas as well. The biggest time frame of concern is between 6 p.m. and 2 a.m. Saturday. That's the window where the biggest concern for a tornado is possible and or wind damage. But there's also a severe weather threat in between 2 and 6 this afternoon. 2 to 4 inches of rain is expected with widespread flooding possible, specifically in low-lying areas. Transparency from hospitals regarding pricing may actually be getting worse compared to a few years ago when the federal government drafted legislation requiring hospitals to post prices for different types of services on their web pages. That's according to Vivian Ho, a researcher at Rice University, who says the first Trump administration also required hospitals to post machine-readable files with all their different prices so researchers could look at information. But Ho says
they are incomplete. We could only compare prices for 11 different things that a patient would stay in the hospital for overnight, and we could only compare fewer than 500 different things that you would go to a hospital on an outpatient basis for.
Ho says the absence of information does not benefit patients. Taking a look at sports, the Astros welcome in the Chicago White Sox for a weekend series. First pitch tonight is at 6:40. The Houston Rockets need 2 to finish off the Golden State Warriors. They play tonight. The tip-off is at 8 p.m. And, of course, checking weather, showers, thunderstorms possible this afternoon through this evening and into tomorrow. We'll see a high of 88 today, a low tonight of 68 and 82 the high on Saturday. Right now, 82 degrees on the UH campus. I'm Tom Perumian, News 88.7.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Fisher Investments. As a fiduciary, Fisher Investments is obligated to act in their client's best interest. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com. Investing in securities involves the risk of loss. This is NPR.
Live from the University of Houston, it's Hello Houston, an open forum on today's biggest stories affecting Houston and beyond. Call now, 713-440-8870, or let us know your thoughts on today's topics by emailing us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now here's your host for Hello Houston, Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
Hello, Friday.
Hello, Friday.
Hello there. You are joining. We made it to the end of the week.
Once again.
I'm so proud of the small accomplishments we celebrate every day on this show. You know, if you want to see us celebrating how we made it to the end of the week, bad segue, you can watch us on YouTube. It's easy to do. Go to hellohouston.org and click that orange banner.
We're right there.
We're streaming live. We want you to subscribe, like, ring that little bell. That'll remind you every time we come on. And also, there's a conversation that goes on right there in the chat, which we monitor and enjoy having you at. If you're a little more old school, can you believe texting now is old school? You can text or call us at 713-440-8870 or just email us at talk@hellohouston.org. Yes, Les?
Well, every time you can ring that bell, I think of Anita Ward, that song, Ring My Bell.
I think of Andy Anderson.
That's right. That's right.
Ring my bell. Well, the bell that will be rung this weekend is it looks kind of bad weather for a little bit.
You know what? This evening, by about 8 o'clock, we see storms in southeast Texas, and then this line moves through during the night and the overnight to the coast by tomorrow morning. So it's an late evening overnight event for showers and thunderstorms. The good news is the front gets through. The winds are out of the north. The dew points are going to come down. Highs are going to be around 80. It's going to be a lovely Saturday and Sunday, and even Monday for Cinco de Mayo.
Oh, well, that's cool. Then it's not a gloom and doom.
No, just get through Friday night. Just be prepared.
Yeah. All right.
You're good.
Good to know. We're prepared for an awful lot on today's show. One of the things we're going to be talking to is the American Meteorological Society President. Alan Seals will be here to talk with us about what's going on with the federal cuts to the National Weather Service. That's coming up in just a bit. But you know the rule, you know the routine here. We start off with the headlines of the day, and Celeste starts us off.
So we are still feeling, the effects of Hurricane Beryl. But this time it's coming from Austin. The Texas Senate passed a bill this week to increase the penalties for harassing or assaulting a utility worker. SB 482 would make harassing a utility worker a Class A misdemeanor. That is up from Class B. And assault a third-degree felony, up from a Class A misdemeanor. Current Texas Penal Code does not define utility workers separately from regular people. And that's a mouthful, but for reference, a Class A misdemeanor is punishable by up to 1 year in jail, and a third-degree felony is punishable up to 10 years. So this is quite a significant step up in severity of punishment. Also, these penalties will now be equal to those of first responders. Under Texas current penal code, utility workers, again, are not defined separately. Senator Carol Alvarado serves District 6 of Harris County, authored the bill, which will now go to the Texas House for consideration in the aftermath of Hurricane Beryl, after workers at CenterPoint Energy received the brunt of harassment last summer during widespread and very long prolonged power outages. SB 482 passed the Senate on Tuesday with a vote of 30-1. We want to hear from you. Do you agree with this bill? Or should they just leave it as is? Give us a call, 713-440-8870. And joining us now is Senator Carol Alvarado to discuss SB 482. Senator Alvarado, welcome to Hello Houston.
Hi, how are y'all?
Hello, Senator. Let me start off with the question that oftentimes we see. Penalties really don't deter crime, they say. Do you think this bill is more symbolic, or do you think it will actually have an effect?
I think if we all do our job and publicize it and let people know that we're serious, after the storm, people were angry, and rightfully so. But I think they were laying blame on the very people who could help them. People were trying to reconnect electricity, restore power. And if they needed to be mad at somebody, it was the executive that made poor decisions, over the last year or two and cutting vegetation and other things. But these linemen, many of them come from other states, and they don't have to be here. Many of them said, we don't need to take this. We're going back home. And so we want people to understand that those folks that are on the front lines trying to restore our power are trying to do good. And if they are assaulted, threatened, then that's a problem. That doesn't help us get our power back on.
Now, Senator, was the harassment to that extreme that you feel like we need to up the penalty of assault and harassment? I know there were a lot of rumors that were going around, but can you tell us a little bit of what was actually happening during that time that you felt that this bill needed to move forward?
Well, and it wasn't just during Beryl, even before that. So in the last 3 years, what's been documented, and I'm sure there are other instances that just didn't get documented, but 17 assaults on the field personnel, people out there while they were doing their job, 17 assaults, 178 in-person threats, 186 threats by phone or social media. And I've seen the numbers. Even this year and late last year, I saw that there were several instances of assaults and harassment. So I don't know why this has been a thing recently, but it has. And I certainly understand and agree with people who were upset, but they should not be upset at the linemen trying to restore power. I think, that frustration and anger is best directed to the executives that made decisions that impacted.
Hi, Senator. It's Frank Billingsley. Welcome to Hello Houston. We're glad you're here.
Oh, hey, Frank.
Hey, Carol. So let me ask you this. The Cajun Navy came after in 2017 after Harvey, and you mentioned out-of-state people come here. So if you commit any kind of assault on an out-of-state person, it's just as effective on an in-state person, clearly.
Absolutely.
And not to take it too far, but are you going to have to get an out-of-state person to come back to Houston to testify? Because that part seems unlikely.
I'm not sure. I mean, that's going to be up to the courts and the DA and the people that are processing the case. But the big message is don't even think about threatening, assaulting, pulling guns on the people that are trying to restore our power. I think people need to redirect their frustration to the folks
to meditation.
Higher up the ladder chain.
We all know the political climate we live in today. On the surface, this bill sounds like a great idea. What kind of pushback, if any, are you getting on it?
We haven't received any pushback. It passed 30-0, and it's already passed the committee in the House, so now it goes to the House floor and then to the governor's desk.
That's great.
Yeah, it seems like a no-brainer. Right? I mean, I wonder why. I guess it's maybe after COVID, people are on a little edgy and I don't know, feel out of control. I can't explain it.
It's that, but our gun laws are just, so out of touch with what the sentiment of most Texans are. I mean, there are really no gun laws, and it's so easy to access a gun, and you hear about people going off and, mass school shootings, or just, it doesn't have to be anything like that, but just having guns so readily available certainly elevates a situation where you could have threats, issues with mental health. I mean, there's just so many factors that come into play now that weren't even considered, a decade or two ago.
But Senator Alvarado, when we're looking at SB 482, I am in no way condoning violence or anything in that regard at all. But I do think a lot of people during Beryl were at their wits' end. And I understand that you're saying we need to be going after, the executives and not the workers. Are you doing anything, or can you talk to us a little bit about what you've done to hold executives accountable at Centerpoint or in this space?
Yes. So right after Beryl, there was a Senate Select Committee that was put together. I was on it. And if you go back and look at that first meeting, we really, hope I can say this on the air, we really ripped them a new one. We asked some very tough questions. We confronted them about the vegetation, the amount that they had been doing over the years had decreased. I pointed that out. I read the numbers to them. And as a result, they have increased it. As you probably have seen, they have, public service announcements or commercials showing how much they have increased their efforts and what they're doing in vegetation. They have really amped it up quite a bit. And then I raised the issue of, over the years, they have taken away, or they decreased the number of in-house linemen. So they become more relying on contractors that come from other states. So they made a commitment, and this was in a official, government committee meeting, to hire more in-house so they don't have to rely so much on contractors that can take, days or weeks to get up in gear and get to Houston. And you also have to think about, too, that when those linemen come from other states, some of them they're sleeping in their cars because there's no electricity, there's no hotel rooms. And so, sleeping in your car, probably not exactly the safest thing or most comfortable thing. And then they get up and they work 12-hour shifts. So we really took them to task. We've done some things on to kind of claw back some issues regarding what they claimed as mobile generators that were not mobile. So I feel like we've done our part in addressing poor decisions that they made leading up to Beryl.
I want to remind everyone quickly, we're speaking with Texas State Senator Carol Alvarado. She is the author of Senate Bill 482, which actually amends the Texas Penal Code to elevate penalties for assault and harassment against utility workers and agents working in declaring disaster or evacuated areas.
Senator, it's Frank again. So I think you just touched on this a little bit, but I think part of the frustration that came about after Beryl is that there were linemen that couldn't, for whatever reason, actually work on your line. And people were having to go and beg the lineman to say, please, you're right there, go up this pole and hook us back up. And then there was something about we spent all this money on those generators, and yet we couldn't turn them on. So there was this whole, Peter didn't know what Paul was doing. Have those issues been addressed and solved?
I think so. We really took them to task on what they sold us a bill of goods about these generators that were mobile and they weren't mobile. So we've addressed that through legislation. And, you had people who, for whatever reason, it was taking quite a bit of time to get their orders. They have a word for what that is called, but to get their directives on where to go. And then when you have all these people coming in from out of state, they're not familiar with Houston, the highways and things like that. Of course, you have GPS, but, being in a new place and under the gun and under pressure to get electricity back on, and that's why we pressed upon them that they needed to really recruit more linemen in-house and be ready to go immediately after power outages and not have to rely on other people to come in from out of state. There are contracts that have to get put in place, and people have to, leave their home and travel time and things like that.
I get it. I think we have one more question for you.
Yes. So, in theory, I think that absolutely protecting, utility workers, but how is this actually going to be enforced in regards to if somebody pulls up and harasses them? What, in your mind, what does that look like? Will they call the police? How are you going to hold people accountable?
Yes, they will call police. The fact that, the numbers that I just read off to you, those are reported crimes that either, maybe they were reported, I believe they were reported to Centerpoint, but just that volume that I just shared with you, and some of that wasn't even during or after a storm. That was just in regular times. Maybe it's, for whatever reason, somebody hits a transformer and there's a power outage, or there's, even like during the derecho, that really wasn't, something that people were anticipating would be to the extreme that it was.
Yeah.
But the fact that those large numbers are documented, that means it was reported somehow. They either called HPD, they called Centerpoint. So people will be encouraged if they are witness something like that, or they are a lineman themselves, the lineman definitely will be calling HPD and Centerpoint to make sure that everything is documented.
Senator, thank you for the work on this bill. I'm curious, you got maybe a month left in session, maybe more, depending on what happens. What do you have planned for the rest of the session? What should we keep an eye out for?
Well, the budget right now, the House and Senate conferees are meeting. There's, this is when you really get down to the wire. This was my first session to serve on finance, and I was on Article 2, which is all the things related to health and human services. And, that's quite a process. You are really going through every single department line by line. And so what the conferees do, they focus on the differences between the House and the Senate budget. So this time around, it is a Senate budget. So we have, a bit more leverage. But this work will go on for the next couple of weeks, and then we vote to adopt it, hopefully. And then we still have some other things that we need to get done. So
so quickly, give me one pet project you're all over that you want to see get through before the end of the session.
Well, in fact, y'all reported on this, I believe. One of my frustrations has been some of our elderly populations have been in really extreme situations with elevators that haven't been working in buildings. In fact, there was one on KU last night, and there was one in my district which prompted this. But these management companies and landlords have to be held accountable. So I have a bill that actually passed in committee last week. It'll be up on the floor next week. And so they will have to make sure that they get elevators working and ramps working if those are out of order. But these are seniors who are foregoing doctor appointments because they're on the second, third, or fourth floor and can't get down. So, things like that. It's all serious. Unfortunately, I don't have anything that's kind of fun and lighthearted. But, the issues that we're working on are things that are impacting everyday folks.
And that's what we elect you for, so thank you for doing the work.
Senator Carol Alvarado serves District 6 of Harris County. Senator Alvarado, again, thank you for joining us on Hello Houston.
You're welcome.
Thank
y'all. Bye-bye.
Coming up on Hello Houston, we'll discuss federal cuts to the National Weather Service and how it can impact Houston with American Meteorological Society President Alan Seals. And we're also taking your calls on any of today's topics at 713-440-8870. This is Hello Houston on News 88.7.
Hi, Hi, I'm Dr. Karen Fox, professor of maternal fetal medicine at UTMB. I'm passionate about serving mothers and children all across our region. As both an educator and physician, I'm privileged to shape the next generation of healthcare professionals. I also support Houston Public Media's mission to educate, inform, and provide critical communications infrastructure for first responders. Join me in ensuring their continued impact by visiting houstonpublicmedia.org/donate.
Hey, it's Francis Lamb, host of The Splendid Table. This week, we've got interviews that will put a couple of great books on your summer reading list. We're talking about the poetry of food and the life of the legendary Judith Jones, who brought Julia Child back to America. That's coming up on The Splendid Table.
You can hear The Splendid Table. It's coming up Sunday at noon.
What you hear on this station, every report, every interview, every update, is only here because someone like you gave.
80% of Houston Public Media's funding comes from Houstonians like you. Our newsroom runs on support from you, our community.
You have the right to know what's going on, and you have the power to make sure others do too.
Join the community right now at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate or call 888-909-0887.
Next time on the Music Archive Showcase, a tribute to the late Levon Helm, key member of the band and a revered solo artist.
He was just right there and smiled at me right into my eyes, and I felt like $1,000,000.
Music writers, fans, and musicians say why he was special. Levon Helm rambles home on the Music Archive Showcase. Saturday evening at 7 on News 88.7.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on any of today's topics, call 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now here's Ernie Manous, Celestia Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
We were just talking with Senator Carol Alvarado about SB 482, which just passed the Senate on Tuesday, and it would increase the penalties for harassing utility workers. Mm-hmm. And we invite you to the conversation at 713-440-8870. And we have a call from Thomas from Montgomery.
Yeah, hello.
Hello.
Hi, Thomas.
I was working press in northern New Jersey before I moved here. And I'd heard of utility workers being harassed, but I never actually saw it myself, because I was always photographing these guys if they were working. So I never encountered that kind of stuff. But for years, and this is like 20 years now, Jersey cops have been stationed at the scenes of any utility workers. If there's any kind of road work going on, there's going to be a cop car there. And people working on power lines, same thing. There'll be a cop car sitting there. So but Jersey drivers are a lot less crazy than the people down here in Texas. These drivers are nuts. These drivers are nuts.
We do have our challenges with our drivers here, but, I've been to New Jersey. They got their challenges, too. Thank you very much for sharing that with us, Thomas.
All right, let's move on. The administration's 2026 budget passback plan, currently under consideration, eliminates NOAA's Oceanic and Atmospheric Research or Office. It's 10 research laboratories, 16 affiliated cooperative institutes. It moves the few remaining research efforts to different departments in NOAA. So if enacted, the passback would shut down all of NOAA's weather, climate, and ocean laboratories and cooperative institutes. Just 2 days ago, 300 National Weather Service employees took the government's buyout plan. Now, the American Meteorological Society, or AMS, has come out strongly against these cuts with warnings of serious consequences to public safety. So with us now to tell us more is a friend of mine, Alan Seals, a former TV meteorologist just like me, who is now president-elect of the AMS and a fellow in that organization, one of the nicest and smartest guys I know. Alan, welcome to Hello Houston.
Oh, thank you very much. Happy to be here.
Hi, Alan.
I think Alan advanced better than you did, Frank. You ended up with us.
Well, Alan is a lot smarter than I am. Trust me on that. First of all, Alan, what kind of shutdowns are we talking here? How many departments of meteorologists across the nation? What's going to happen here?
Yeah, so to take it from the start, NOAA is sort of the parent organization of the National Weather Service. And NOAA, overall, it's really fewer than 15,000 people. And the National Weather Service, of course, is way lower than that. we think of NOAA as just the Weather Service.
And I would point out,
the Weather Service is
I want to point out real quick that
NOAA.
they're under the Department of Commerce.
Correct. I'm sorry. Yes. And for a good reason. And that's because weather controls commerce both directly in terms of shipping, aviation, transportation. Weather controls agriculture. Everything we do on Earth is based on weather. So given that, already what we've seen, as you mentioned, the National Weather Service has had cuts. It has had freezes. It has had whether you want to call them layoffs or early retirements. So already the people who are basically the boots on the ground to serve Houston and Texas with good weather information, the numbers are shrinking. Now back that up to NOAA. NOAA is the support agency which provides the research for the Doppler radar network, for the satellites. It provides the modeling data, which allows the local weather service forecasters to create their weather forecasts. What we're hearing is NOAA's budget being cut down, the research, a lot of it being cut, but a lot of it also being redistributed. So the first thing is, it's a lot of mystery. Nobody knows how this is going to play out, but I use the analogy. If you're a sports team owner, you have a new franchise. If you go in and you cut your team support by 50%, 30%, if you stop researching your opponents, if you stop studying your craft and your sport, there's no way in the future you're going to be better. Yes, you may get through this season okay, but in the long term, what NOAA is doing has potential dramatic negative impacts on how the National Weather Service functions, on literally public safety.
Now, Alan, I have a quick question about how much of it is actually just, instead of looking at it from a budget perspective, AI and technology is getting better. And so people are looking at ways to be more efficient, which also helps them in the long run with their bottom line, which is their budget.
Right. Yeah, that would be awesome. AI to the average person seems like a miracle, but AI is trained on human study. It's trained on climate information. It's trained on the past. And it's not perfect. And even when AI does things really well, which right now with weather forecasting, it is not consistently good, even though you might see a few articles here and there that it nailed one storm, but it's not good enough to replace the human beings. Even as we approach that point, you still need human beings to train it, to guide it, and also to train people on how to interpret it. And we know that's one of the biggest deals with weather and climate information is making it make sense to the public.
We're talking to Alan Seals, who is the president of the AMS now, former TV meteorologist. Alan, a lot of people, and please speak to this, a lot of people don't realize that wherever they get their weather, no matter what app they use, no matter what AccuWeather, Weather Channel, Climate Center, whoever they like, no matter what TV meteorologist, it all comes from the National Weather Service.
That's right. Your tax dollars support what I think is the best weather infrastructure in the world, literally. And I don't just say that because we live here, but we've got an organization that is motivated by purpose. That's NOAA, versus a private company, which is motivated by profit. The purpose of NOAA is to protect life and property and to make all of us healthier, wiser, smarter, live longer. Maybe even better looking, but that's a different story.
That's
but
TV.
it's the satellite and the radar network that is the foundation for all computer models. And if you take the private industry, which is great, we need that. NOAA supports private industry. It is an economic engine that creates jobs. And those industries also help to disseminate weather information, which truly is for everybody, for all entities and all individuals.
You know, a lot of people don't realize the scope of the National Weather Service and NOAA, from wildfire forecasting to they used to do, one guy even called it pirate forecasting because they would forecast the waves and the wind in the Indian Ocean and let people know this is bad weather for pirates out there or good weather for pirates, which is extreme. but you know, from marine to wildfires to, earthquakes, I mean, they do it all.
Yeah, chemical spills. Unfortunately, Houston's no stranger to petrochemical issues.
Right.
And when you get something in the air that you don't want there, NOAA is there on the spot, sampling, measuring, also predicting using all the data and all the research. And that's where the research comes into play. Not anybody, but a good weather forecaster, excuse me, a good weather forecaster can make a forecast, but if over time you're not improving, there's a problem. And the threat to NOAA right now is that there will not be improvement because a lot of the funding is being removed. It's also being shifted, so I'm optimistic that we won't lose all of it. But think about this upcoming hurricane season. One of the National Hurricane Center's pats on the back, which they deserve, is the hurricane forecast cone that shows where the center of the storm is likely to be. It'll be about 3 to 5% narrower than it was last year. And if you go back 20 years, that cone 5 days out is now half the width that it was. So just think about a 3 to 5% improvement every year. Right now in your 401k, that would be awesome. Other years, it wouldn't be so great. But when you take away the research, the National Weather Service, the National Hurricane Center, they all lose the ability to improve. And we need improvement if for no other reason than our population is growing, our infrastructure is aging, and we are way more weather sensitive than ever.
Well, to your point, you and I both remember when all we did was a 3-day forecast and rarely got that right. And then that expanded to a 5-day forecast. I remember doing this for the first 7-day forecast in Houston. And then we went to a 10-day forecast, and I was the first to do it in Houston simply because the internet was doing it. I'm like, if people can get a 10-day forecast off the internet, then I'm going to give it to them on television. So that's an example of how the cone's gotten smaller, the forecasts have gotten, and they're actually pretty good. We may not get the 10-day exactly, but it's about a 50% accuracy rate. And a 7 days
amazing.
7 days like 80%.
Go ahead.
No, a 7 days gotten to where it's 80% accurate.
Yeah, people take it for granted. No matter how more accurate the forecast is, everyone expects it to be more accurate because we live in the digital world, but weather is analog, it's not digital. But now on your smartphone, you have weather forecast models that literally update every hour. And of course, though, that's based on NOAA data, mostly on NOAA data. So it is a huge industry. And don't forget the ocean. That's one of the words within NOAA, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. 2/3 of the Earth is covered by water. We have to understand that. And one of the things that's sort of, I guess, hidden in the budget proposal is the state of Texas has a half dozen weather stations that are considered climate reference stations. In other words, they have combined easily 20 years each of weather history. It's not just temperature, pressure, humidity, and wind. It's also soil temperature. It's also measuring the sun. So these are things that go into agriculture. They go into designing communities. But the budget proposal basically says, get rid of those. We are not going to talk about climate because of the mistaken impression that climate is somehow a bad word. Climate is weather history, and we all have to know our history.
Yeah, we're going to continue talking about climate and weather and also budget cuts with Alan Seales. He is the president-elect of the American Meteorological Society. If you have questions or concerns or just want to join the conversation, give us a call, 713-440-8870. You can also text us at 713-440-8870.
To Alan's point, climate is what you expect. Weather is what you get.
Mm-hmm. Well, and also you touched on this a little bit, but NOAA's annual budget actually represents 0.09% of the $6.75 trillion. So NOAA's when you're looking at it from a budget perspective, is about $6.6 billion. That's what it costs, which is not much in the grand scheme of things. Why do you think that they want to cut then this? Why?
And to that
I have no idea.
Yeah, to that point, Alan.
No, really.
Do you think they're trying to privatize it?
It's such a small, when we're looking at it from a fiscal perspective, it's such a small percentage.
Right, and the benefit of the money spent is so incredible.
So I'm curious, Alan, from your perspective, why do you think that this would be something on the chopping block?
I'll speak as a citizen and not as a meteorologist. Again, I have no idea. When you look at some of the language that's come out of so many of the statements from the White House, the language in the past back, the budget proposal says maximize efficiency. It says save money. It does not say improve our science capability. So it's putting the money over the science, which is very short-sighted. you can go to a doctor, and while you want to save money, you don't just immediately go to the lowest priced doctor. You do your background check. You want to research that person's abilities, their track record, and then you make your decision. But everything that seems to be coming out of the White House is all about dollars, not about impact to people's lives. And you mentioned that budget. Look at Hurricane Helene, look at Milton, look at Harvey, look at the tens of billions of dollars of losses and misery from one storm. And you compare that to NOAA's budget, it doesn't make sense.
I'm curious, if you were to look ahead 5 years, you can put on whichever hat you want right now. Look ahead 5 years. If these cuts go through and this is gone, where are we? How are we doing our jobs here?
Okay, yeah, not pretty. The National Weather Service, dedicated employees. In the short term, I don't think the general public is going to see a big difference in the weather forecasting. But 5 years from now, if these cuts go through, in the best case, your forecasting improves a little bit as opposed to improving a lot, which makes us more vulnerable. As an organization, and I've seen this as a broadcast meteorologist, when your funds are cut, when your workload increases, when your coworkers disappear, the environment is not conducive to productivity and happiness. So even though you're dedicated to your job, you're going to struggle to keep up with all the tasks that are involved. And of course, the big task is severe weather. It's hazardous weather. But you start missing out on community interaction, helping the public understand weather and climate. More importantly, for me as an educator, is the National Weather Service also generates interest in the science of meteorology. So you lose the pipeline of future meteorologists because the current ones are working so hard, they're overloaded, they're getting burned out. It doesn't show a pretty picture for the future of meteorology within the Weather Service and within NOAA.
You know, one of the most common questions I think you and I get asked, Alan, is why is the European model so much better than the American model?
I always ask you that.
I know. You already ask me that all the time. I don't necessarily, and as you know, and I know, it varies storm to storm. In fact, the head of the European model will tell you they actually use data from the American model within the scope of the European model. But the bottom line to your point is, if we're ever going to be on a scale of competing with the European model, we have to have money. It's all about computers and data, and it takes money to collect the data, and it takes money to build the computers, right?
Yeah, and I think one of the misconceptions, and maybe this goes back to the question about, well, why NOAA? And that may be that NOAA, like many government agencies, does its job. They do it well. They don't brag about it. They don't promote it as much as maybe they should. So the average person may not know what they're going to miss because they don't know what NOAA does. But think of the concept of someone within your city says, hey, you know, we need to cut the fire department because every time I drive by, they're just sitting there. They're not doing anything. Very few people would vote to cut your fire department because people understand that on the days when they're not physically fighting a fire, they are training, they are learning, they are planning ahead, and they are gearing up for when that disaster occurs. So even though it may on the outside, on a glance, look like, oh, they don't do that much, they're doing a lot. And we need them. When we really need them, we do really need them.
We're talking with Alan Seals, who is with the American Meteorological Society. Our phone number here is 713-440-8870. Sylvia is on the line from Montrose and has a question for Alan. Sylvia, what's on your mind?
Hi, thank you so much, Alan, for talking with us. My name is Sylvia D. I'm a climate scientist at Rice University. And my question is, what can we do as climate scientists to speak out and help solve this problem? I hear you about how dark things are getting out there, and I want to know how I can help.
Yeah, I struggle with that because, as we talked earlier, we're fighting politics, economics, and then science is right there in the middle of the two of those. It is where I as a human being, will raise my voice, and I have done so to my representatives. That's the start, is you have to speak out as an individual. It's difficult for those of us, or those of you who are still working, who are still employed, because there is a potential risk to your job security. But speak up as you can, encourage your family and friends to do the same. And now that social media, one of the positives of social media is you can put things out there that are useful. People will fight, they'll argue, they'll debate, but you still have to speak facts, you still have to speak truth. And I guess most of all, stay hopeful, just stay hopeful.
Thanks for that call, Sylvia, and that's a great answer, Alan. And we did receive a text from Robert. Our company bought a ship from NOAA. I was impressed. Very good condition and 20 years of captain's logs meticulously kept. This would be at least 4 different captains. Well done, NOAA.
They do great work. There's no question. Yeah. And, researchers, on the face of it, sounds like guys in white lab coats doing really boring stuff. But they are a lot of college students, a lot of PhDs, a lot of master's degrees, a lot of A&M students have one of the best meteorology programs in the country, Texas A&M. So these are people who are really smart, and we need them, just like Alan. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Alan. Yeah.
Alan Seals is a former TV meteorologist and president-elect of the AMS. Coming up, we'll talk with Bradley Bailey, the curator and chair of Asian art at the Museum of Fine Arts, Houston, who will discuss their new exhibition. Stay with us as Hello Houston continues.
It's more important than ever to stay informed. That's why Houston Public Media delivers well-researched news that's free for everyone.
And right now, your support helps make sure it stays that way. No subscription, no paywall, just news that's here when you need it.
Give today to keep yourself and your community informed, no matter what the future holds.
Make your donation now at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate.
Or call 888-909-0887.
Next time on Climate One, it can be easy to feel despair about climate change, but there is good news too.
The good news about climate solutions is that we have so many, that we have everything we need, by the way, right now, already to solve climate change. We don't need to invent anything new to actually stop this problem.
Solutions that work. Up next on Climate One.
You can hear it Sunday morning at 6.
Complementing the nameplate was a Kango bucket hat, gazelle glasses, a terracloth Adidas sweatsuit, and a vintage pair of 1986 Run DMC Adidas.
Join us for stories of things remembered. That's next time on the Moth Radio Hour from PRX.
It's on Saturday at noon on News 88.7.
Support comes from John Moore, helping with plumbing, electrical, and air conditioning repairs, including out-of-warranty units since 1965. Details at 730-2525 or at johnmooreservices.com. Support for Houston Public Media comes from Chariot Energy, leveraging technology to serve Texas electricity consumers with a variety of plan types and term lengths tailored for homes and businesses. Details at chariotenergy.com.
And now back to Hello Houston. Join the conversation. Call now, 713-440-8870, or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now here's Ernie Manous, Celestia Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
On Sunday, May 4th, the Museum of Fine Arts Houston will open a new exhibit called Floating World by Tokyo, London-based artist duo A.A. Murakami. The exhibit combines science, art, and nature to immerse visitors in a unique environment of light, fog, plasma, and sound. With us now to tell us more is Bradley Bailey. He is the Ting Sung and Wei Feng Chao curator and chair of Asian art at the Museum of Fine Arts Houston. Bradley, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Good morning.
This exhibit, and we'll talk a lot more about it, but I want to start with the fact it's its first time showing here in the U.S.
Yes, this is their American debut.
How did you folks get it?
Well, I've actually been friends with the artists for probably about 15 years now. So I followed their work, and they recently had they showed one of these works at M+ in Hong Kong, and the line went around the block and up 3 floors into the building. So that was a good sign, right? We need to have something like that for Houston. And so through speaking with them and allowing them to our facility and see how large our museum is, it really inspired them. And so this is their biggest show ever. And yeah, it's their first American one. So we're very, very lucky.
For folks who are expecting, when you say Museum of Fine Arts Houston, beautiful paintings on the wall, this really breaks out of that setting.
Yeah, it's very different. The artists for the past decade, they've really pioneered this, what they call ephemeral tech or ephemeral technology. And so, yes, of course, when you come back, I always say you can come visit your old friends at the museum. You know, we always have certain paintings or certain statues on view, and one of the beautiful things about them is they never change. But this work is designed, these artworks are designed to change every time you come. It's a singular experience. So even if you come back every single day, the experience will never be repeated.
So this whole idea of like immersive, active art, I went to the X immersive art at the Post that opened in December, where you go into a room after room after room, and you just feel this just sort of amazing, literally immersion into it. This seems to be similar.
It might seem similar, but one of the really amazing things that Murakami have done is the actual technology that they pioneer. So the first room that you enter, you see these works called Neon Sun.
And a big room.
Yeah, large rooms. It's a series of 4 rooms, about 25,000 square feet of space.
Oh, wow. Okay, so you go to this big room, so you feel really small.
Yeah.
And what do you see?
Well, there are 4 different rooms, and so the first room shows, you'll see what appears to be just like neon tubes, but it's actually tubes of plasma that have been activated using electromagnetic fields, so not with electricity. That's what gives us the northern lights. The sun is made of plasma, and the Earth's magnetic pole causes it to change color. So they recreate that in one of the galleries. They also have what they call GBMs, or giant bubble machines, that out of the darkness emerge these giant fog-filled bubbles. They're 6 to 8 feet in diameter, and they float across the space. And it's all dark except the bubbles are illuminated.
So you see them up like above you, like clouds?
They look like clouds, or they actually kind of look like opals or pearls because of the way that they're filled with smoke.
Oh, cool.
And so this exhibit is called Floating World, and it really is taking science and art and it's putting it together. Where do you think that these artists were gathering their inspiration from? And because we don't often think about science as art.
Yeah. Well, so artists often do use, pioneer new technology throughout history to kind of create art, and that's what they're doing. But they've really been inspired by Japan. I mean, they live and reside in Hayama, which is just outside of Tokyo. And if you come to the museum, actually in the lobby, we're showing a film that they made, and it shows some of the things that inspire them. And so Floating World itself is actually a reference to Japanese culture. In pre-modern Japan, the floating world actually referred specifically to kind of the realm of the pleasure quarters and the places where actors would go. It's originally a Buddhist concept about all of these material things that you're supposed to resist. But in pre-modern Japan, they flip it, and it becomes all of these things that you're supposed to revel in. And outside of the stresses of everyday life, you can go kind of release and experience this new environment. And so that's really what these, drawing on aspects of Japanese culture, each of these 4 different environments really releases you from the stresses of everyday life, I think.
I was in Tokyo back a few years ago, and that is exactly the way I would describe the city. It is one of the most advanced cities in technology, but yet you have these incredible temples right in the city that are ancient. And so hearing the merging of that we get to experience just a little bit of that here in Houston is incredible.
Speaking of the merging of ideas, when you walk into something like this, in this particular exhibit, you're overwhelmed by the visual of it all, the sound, the look, the feel in there. What do the artists want us to discover in this moment of seeing the atmosphere around us?
Yeah, well, they often talk about this concept, this Japanese concept called mono no aware, which means it's the impermanence of things. And it's kind of it's somewhat beautiful. They always talk about the falling cherry blossom. It's beautiful, but it's also kind of melancholic because it's dying. And so, as I said, when you come, these bubbles or these vortex fog rings that project across the space, or they actually create literal lightning in a bottle, and you can hear the thunder from the lightning using plasma and electricity. And so I think they want you to understand that with this ephemeral technology, that it is a fleeting experience, a singular experience that can't be recreated. And what I have found being in the space is that, unlike a lot of other immersive environments or immersive artworks where you sort of go in and you look around and you sort of get it and then you can move on, these works really do reward sitting there and watching them. And in fact, they're quite hypnotic. I find myself sitting in these rooms for minutes at a time, over and over again throughout the day.
Can you talk about the fourth room, the Krypton?
Yes.
I love this idea. Who knew there was really kryptonite, Ernie?
Superman never visits this room.
It is. Well, it's strange. Plasma. So I've learned working with them that plasma is the fourth state of matter, and it's actually the most abundant state of matter in the universe. It's just rare on Earth. And so but you could still get it. And so they have tubes. They have tubes filled with plasma, and they're hanging from the ceiling in this orange kind of void. It's a fog-filled room, and they have a sequence. And when they activate, as I said, they create lightning. So if you look closely, there's no wires or anything in the tubes. It's just arcs of lightning zipping through each tube. And of course, with each lightning strike comes a little thunder.
Yeah.
And the artists say, and it really does. It sounds like crickets. And in Japan, these crickets, the suzumushi, the bell cricket, they're a seasonal word, and so they herald the arrival of fall, kind of the end of summer. And so since this exhibition is running through September, the artist thought that was a wonderful way to kind of end the show.
How is the show unique to us here in Houston as to what they've presented before?
Well, this is the very first time that they've actually been able to do multiple environments at once. Typically, when they showed the Royal Academy, or when they showed in Hong Kong or in Korea, they often do one room. And the rooms are often smaller than, we have Texas-sized rooms.
Where's Texas? We got a lot of
And so this was really special because it allowed them to realize this project they've had for a really long time, because they've been kind of refining and designing all of these various environments through independent projects. But the real vision was to bring them together. They liken it to an Asian garden where you stroll through all the different sections. And so that's what they were going for with this. And it's the first time ever, so I think it's very, very special.
As the curator here, how involved are you in actually what they're presenting, or were you more simply involved in getting them to come here to present?
Well, that's interesting. This is kind of unique for me because, again, as chair of the Asian department, the artists I normally work with are dead.
Right. In theater, they often say the best playwright is a dead playwright.
Yeah, so I get to make a lot more independent decisions working on historic material. But no, I worked with them to kind of do the interpretive texts and come up with kind of the overall concept, also to shape kind of the marketing and the vision. And then really, with a project like this, there is involvement from nearly every department in the museum, because we have to involve IT and engineering and facilities and all, because it's very, very complicated. Yeah.
And speaking of, I know you're talking about age, but I did notice that these artists are pretty young. I mean, they were born in the 80s. So how involved were they talking to you and making sure that they wanted their vision to come to life?
Well, first, I love that 80s is still young. Thank you. As his fellow 80s.
Look around your
80s, yes, right. So us millennials, we will hold on for as long as we can.
Good luck.
Well, no, they're like all artists, they're very exacting, and I think they, especially with this material, you have to be. I mean, the installation did not take all that long. A lot of the past 4 or 5 days that we spent preparing it to open to the public were really testing and calibrating all of the machines. Yeah.
Quick question on nuts and bolts.
Yeah.
I know you spend days in the room. What the average person, about how long will it take to go all through 4 rooms?
I think you could, if you wanted to watch the entire sequences of all of the things, I think it would probably take you about a half hour.
Nice.
How long do you suggest people stay in the room?
I think we'll have to see how popular it is. We're going to have to move them through. We're going to have to keep them moving. But
stop loitering.
Exactly. But they really, because actually, I mean, these artworks, the effect upon entering each new space is people literally do stop in their tracks. So we have had to have discussions about keep moving through the space, please. But I think that the artist would love for you to stay for as long as you would like.
As long as you want.
We have seating in there. It's a very, very, especially the fog ring work is a very meditative environment, very peaceful.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Bradley Bailey is the Ting Sung and Wei Fong Chow Curator and Chair of Asian Art at the Museum of Fine Arts, Houston. Bradley, again, thank you for joining us today on Hello Houston. A.A. Murakami's Floating World exhibition opens on Sunday, May 4th, and will be at the Museum of Fine Arts, Houston through September 21st. Coming up, we'll discuss a new Houston police contract with Officer Ken Nealy of the Houston Police Officers Union, and we'll dive into our last-minute plans for the weekend. This is Hello Houston on News 88.7.
Stay tuned. There's more Hello Houston on the way with Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley. For the latest in local news, subscribe to the Hello Houston daily newsletter at houstonpublicmedia.org. Hello Houston is a production of Houston Public Media. The opinions expressed by the guests of this program are solely their own and do not represent the views of management, staff, or underwriters of Houston Public Media. This is News 88.7.
Support comes from GenPro, a Houston-based home generator service providing power to homes during unexpected outages, helping with connectivity and productivity. More information is available at genpro.com.
We have a chance of severe thunder showers today and tonight. Currently, it's 83. This is your NPR station, KUHF, Houston. News 88.7, a service of the University of Houston. It's 12 o'clock.
Just ahead on this hour of Hello Houston, we'll speak with Officer Ken Nealy, the first vice president of the Houston Police Officers Union, about the shortage of officers at HPD. I'm Frank Billingsley.
And I'm Celestia Sherman. Then we'll speak with Jonathan Van Ness of Queer Eye about his upcoming performances in Houston and more.
And I'm Ernie Manous. Plus, we'll have our last-minute plans, a comprehensive list of everything going on in the city this weekend.
And we want to hear from you, so give us a call or shoot us a text, 713-440-8870, or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. You can also watch us on our YouTube channel. Just go to houstonpublicmedia.org and click the big orange banner.
Hello Houston is made possible in part by founding sponsors John Bradshaw and Kathy Sanders, and by gifts from listeners like you.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. The Trump administration is ending a duty-free exemption on low-value imports from China beginning today. That includes sites like Shein or Temu. NPR's Emily Fang says the move will make those goods much more expensive for U.S. consumers.
There has been pressure since the Biden administration to end what's called the de minimis loophole, meaning packages under $800 were not charged an import fee. More than 1 billion of these packages now come to the U.S. a year, mostly from China, a more than six-fold increase from the last decade. The Trump administration says it's now going to charge customs duties on packages from China in order to combat fentanyl trafficking and to collect revenue for the government. American consumers are now sharing screenshots of the new import cost estimates they're getting on Temu, which in most cases double or even triple the cost of their purchases from China. And trade logistics companies are warning of massive delays in shipping in the coming weeks. Emily Fang, NPR News, Washington.
NPR and PBS say they will challenge President Trump's executive order seeking to cease all federal funding to public media. NPR has released a statement from President and CEO Catherine Marr. She writes the president's order is, quote, an affront to the First Amendment rights of NPR and locally owned and operated stations throughout America, as well as the listeners and donors who support independent news and information. NPR's David Folkenflik reports on what comes next.
It's not clear he has the power to do this. The Corporation for Public Broadcasting has filed a suit in court that's supposed to, move forward next week. It's being heard on an expedited basis by a federal judge in Washington, and we're going to see. It appears right now that the CPB is simply ignoring the president's edict, saying he doesn't have the authority to do this to us. We are not owned by the federal government.
That's NPR's David Folkenflik. President Trump has accused NPR and PBS of left-wing bias. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky is calling a minerals deal with the U.S. historic and expects it'll modernize Ukraine. NPR's Joanna Kakissis reports the deal also opens the door to continuing U.S. military support for Ukraine.
The agreement creates a joint investment fund that would raise revenue through the sale of licenses to mine Ukraine's critical minerals as well as other natural resources. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky refused to sign an early draft because he says it would have left Ukrainians deeply in debt. Speaking in his nightly video address, he said negotiations made the deal fairer.
Значно змінилась в процесі підготовки.
This agreement changed, he said. It's now an equal partnership, one that creates opportunities for substantial investment in Ukraine. Zelensky said the deal happened after what he calls a meaningful meeting with President Trump at a Vatican basilica just before Pope Francis's funeral. Joanna Kakissis, NPR News, Kyiv.
It's NPR.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Tom Perumian. The National Weather Service is giving the Houston region a 3 out of 5 chance to see heavy winds, downpours, hail, and even an isolated tornado. Here's Tim Cady, forecaster with the National Weather Service.
Generally, the further north you go, especially as you even get north of Metro Houston, north of the 610 loop, that threat will be a little bit higher up there. But all of the greater Houston area will be under a risk of severe weather today. It's just a day to be aware of what's going on. Make sure you can get those warnings if we're issuing them.
Along with strong winds approaching 55 miles an hour, the bigger threat will be overnight in between 6 p.m. and 2 a.m. That's when the chance for a tornado increases. A bill requiring the Ten Commandments be displayed in every public school classroom in the state has advanced in the Texas House. The House Committee on Public Education approved Senate Bill 10 Thursday without amendments. Earlier this week, Democratic Representative John Bryant laid out a key argument against the bill, speaking to Republican Representative Candy Noble.
What I understand is that you want to pass a law that's going to say that every school classroom has a religious document that's sacred to Christians and Jews, but is not sacred to other religions.
So
and is not important to the 26% of the people in the state who are not religious, and put it on the wall of a school building that they paid for.
Noble is carrying SB 10 in the House. She argued the Ten Commandments are a foundational document in U.S. history and critical to moral education. In sports, the Astros, they open up a 3-game weekend series against the Chicago White Sox tonight at 6:40. Meanwhile, the Rockets against the Warriors. They're in San Francisco playing on the West Coast in the NBA playoffs, and they tip off at 8 p.m. Showers, thunderstorms moving in later this afternoon. We'll see a high around 86. Rain into the evening becoming stronger overnight, a low around 68. I'm Tom Perumian, News 88.7.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Capital One with the Capital One Saver Card. What's in your wallet? Terms apply. Details at CapitalOne.com. And the John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation at macfound.org.
Live from Houston Public Media and News 88.7, it's Hello Houston, an open forum on today's biggest stories affecting Houston and beyond. Call now, 713-440-8870, or let us know your thoughts on today's topics by emailing us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now here's your host for Hello Houston, Ernie Manous, Celestia Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
You know, somebody said that I'm redundant online, but
Yes.
I'm going to say it again. We made it to the noon hour.
And you've also said how somebody has said that you're redundant multiple
I'm
times.
redundant about reminding people that I'm redundant. All right. So anyway, we're back. Yes. Hello, Houston.
Hello, Houston.
Here with you for your noon hour to take you through it with more excitement, more interesting talk. And we even have a celebrity guest coming up later in the show to tell us about their weekend plans. And also want to know all your weekend plans. Also, while we've been on the air, an agreement seems to have been reached with the Houston Police Department Union and the City of Houston. We're going to get details on that in just a bit. But we want to hear from you, and we want to let you know you can watch us. It's easy to do. Go to YouTube and join us there. Look for the Houston Public Media channel, or just go to our website, hellohouston.org. Click that orange bar, and you'll be taken over to YouTube where you can watch us. Subscribe. Ring that bell, and thumbs up us. And also join the chatter on the side there. We love that.
Subscribe, like, follow.
All the stuff you can do that. Also, you can just call us, text us, 713-440-8870, or email us, talk@hellohouston.org. Why do I say all of that? Because we encourage your engagement.
Because however you get in touch with your kids, you can get in touch with us.
We're like your kids.
Hey, look, watch out for a little strong storm or two later today.
Okay.
I would say between 6 and 8, we'll see things start popping off to our west. This all moves through Houston from 8 to 2 in the morning toward the coast between 2 and 6. And then once it's out of here, it's going to be a beautiful weekend. Nice and quiet with the north wind and the dew points. The dew point temperatures will be going down into the 50s, which means smile when the dew point drops.
Was there ever a musical group called the Dew Points?
Yeah, they sang Stormy Weather.
I think you're making this up as you
Totally
go.
making that
I'll
up.
give you my Stormy Weather trivia question.
Yeah.
What movie was the song Stormy Weather originally in? My favorite dumb question.
What?
the movie Stormy Weather.
Oh.
But nobody ever knows
Stormy
that.
Weather.
There was a movie called Stormy Weather. That was the theme song. Oh, right.
I have a joke, but I'm not going to say it about
you
Stormy.
can't do that.
No.
All
You
right.
can't do that.
hold
You
it.
can't say that and
I'm gonna
not
hold it.
go through.
No, if she's self-censoring,
I'm
there's probably a good reason for it. But one thing we never censor is the headlines of the day, and Celeste always begins us off. What's on your topic?
So the Texas House Committee on State Affairs on Wednesday passed its own version of Senate Bill 3. The substitute bill would ban some consumable hemp products from sale, and it would bar some locations, such as gas stations, from selling any such products, most of which contain THC, the main intoxicating chemical in marijuana. The revised bill followed hours of testimony and hundreds of written comments on both the original SB 3 and a related hemp ban bill, House Bill 28. The comments ran heavily against a complete ban on consumable hemp. That's in part because hemp has grown into a multi-billion-dollar industry supporting thousands of Texas jobs, but also because many Texans have come to rely on such products to treat medical conditions, ranging from chronic pain to seizures to post-traumatic stress. Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, the leading force behind the original SB 3, is a firm advocate of complete prohibition of consumable hemp products. Where do you stand on the Texas hemp debate? We want to hear from you. Give us a call or shoot us a text at 713-440-8870.
You know, if you listen to the show regularly or know me, I'm not much of a fan of doing anything. You know, I'm a pretty boring person, so I don't partake of any of these things we're talking about, which is good because some of them may be illegal. My point is, though, with alcohol and the way we regulate alcohol and the amount of money it generates and all of that, and the hemp products, they're out there. People are doing them. It's better to have control over it than just let it be out there because it did infuse an awful lot of money into our economy. And a lot of these are very mild products, as I understand it, not speaking from the point of a medical professional. But the addiction levels are lower than a lot of other things, and people do use them for medications and increase appetite for people who have cancer, things like that. There are purposes behind it, and also recreationally, people are getting their hands on.
So you're okay with it being for medical purposes?
I'm okay for
medicinal.
Light recreation, even. You know, not that I would, even if it were legal, I wouldn't do it.
I don't have any problem with it.
Yeah.
I mean, marijuana is legal in so many states now.
Right.
You can't walk down Fifth Avenue in New York without smelling marijuana. Yeah. And you go to
New York City is kind of crazy when you're in there now.
Well, Colorado has the marijuana stores in Colorado look like a Tiffany's boutique, and they sell it that way. And it's fascinating just to see how they do that. I've spoken about this before. My mother, with dementia, we would give her pot chocolate. Her appetite was horrible, so the pot chocolate increased the appetite, and she was always a little nervous, and she could get rather sharp, but the pot calmed her down. So it was really, and it's legal in Arkansas, just by the way. I think, like Ernie says, controlled marijuana should be legal across the United States. I think it would help with the drug trafficking that's involved in that.
Right. There are milder forms of this that
I don't know much about hemp. Do you smoke hemp?
I think
you can consume it.
I'm not sure. I really don't know. I think that Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick's point is that it continues, the boundary continues to be pushed.
Right.
And so what's next? And so in his thought process, looking from a law and order perspective, he's saying, nope, it should all be banned. It should all be illegal. And then there's no interpretation of amounts or medicinal, or is it okay?
Well, you could say the same thing about prostitution and say, good. I mean, there are countries where it's legal, and say, you know what, sex trafficking is a real problem. And if you got more control of what's going on in the sex industry, you might be able to cut down on the sex trafficking and control diseases and health matters that come with that. I mean, this is the same argument you're making for hemp, is to get a hold of it, you control it, you make money off of it, and if it's going to happen anyway, at least you control it. That's your argument.
For the most part.
Yeah, and I think Dan Patrick's fear is you could say this about so many things.
Right.
And it does open the door.
But I think that's why prostitution
Gambling
is just 100% illegal.
And what about gambling? Let's gamble and control it and make money off of it.
A lot of people have an opinion about this, much stronger than the three of us at this table. We would love to hear from you, especially on this topic, because I know there's a lot of concern, a lot of thought, and some people put a lot more thought into this argument than we have. 713-440-8870. What do you think? Is the ban a good idea? Should we continue to move toward legalizing different levels of all of this? Where should we be in today's day and age when, and I throw this in as the caveat, it's so readily available? And if you are caught with it, there is a huge discrepancy in the way, or disparity is a better word, in the way people are punished for possession. And I think that needs to be looked at too.
Good point. Some people are being deported if they have any kind of marijuana conviction on their record.
Yeah.
You kind of ignored my gambling thing, both of you, but same thing.
Okay. 713-440-8870. I'm ignoring it again. Not for any reason but time. But anyway, give us a call if you have a thought. I'm going to move on to another story for us.
Here we go.
Okay. This one's been floating on in our hopper for a few days now. We're finally getting to it. A Houston man was arrested and charged for I thought it was the other story.
Let's do the other story.
We want to do the other story. You guys talk for a minute. I'm going to pull the other script.
Yes.
Let's talk about gambling. Because you could say the same argument. If you could control gambling, you would allow gambling. You make money off of it. People are going to Lake Charles anyway. They're going to Vegas. They're probably doing gambling in back rooms.
Yes, but the thing is that, again, going back to the original issue, is that it opens up other things. It becomes I know I'm going to sound very 90s here when I say a gateway to worse things.
Where sleeping dogs lie, please crawl in.
That's right. But we do have a call from Adrian from Houston on the hemp headline. Like that hemp headline. All right, Adrian. Hi, Adrian. Welcome to Hello Houston. What's your comment?
Hi, guys.
Hi.
Long time listener, first time caller.
Yay.
Ernie, we met at the Lion King this summer. Me and my mom, we walked to the car with you. So
yes.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for calling.
Sure, no problem. I am very passionate about this subject.
Please share.
To say that I'm an advocate would just be an understatement. I work in the industry. I own part of a farm in Oklahoma where it's legal to grow medical marijuana. I own a part of a company out of Chicago where we sell hemp-derived products that are federally legal, and we can mail them to people's houses. And so I'll start with this comment. I think that what the lieutenant governor is doing is just a continuation of people who don't have the information, the science, and like the legal backing to understand this law, that are just kind of moving from a place of fear or control.
Mm-hmm.
What Frank has said, and I've heard you guys talk about, the gummies with this bomb and everything. I think those stories are hilarious, but they are kind of like emblematic of what people can do with this medication, especially for extreme conditions. I was talking with a sweet elderly lady yesterday, probably in her 90s. She's got 5 different types of cancer, and she's in chemo and radiation. And we were at a Loud coffee shop off of Shepherd. And I was kind of just telling her, and I was just there having tea, but I was just telling her about some of the products that they have available there. I don't work there. I don't get a commission. But just because she was looking for some relief from her condition.
Yep.
And Adrian, I'm going to guess a lot of people would, when it's used medically, would have a slightly different stance on it than for recreational. I'm curious your thoughts or maybe knowledge on it. If it were to have a total ban in the state, what would that do economically to us?
Well, I mean, it is a $1 billion economy. Here's the thing. What it would do, it would drive the market underground again.
Right.
And there's always been a market for marijuana, and, and so we're going to find it. It's just going to make it more harder for law enforcement to enforce it, because the truth is you can have these laws on the book, but if the municipalities don't have the resources to actually control it, that's going to be a problem. Mm-hmm. So, and just going back for a second, the science part of this, because you guys have been talking about marijuana, you've been talking about hemp, and the questions of like, well, how they combine or how they're similar and different. Cannabis is like the Latin name for it. It's the scientific name. Hemp is the male version of the plant. Marijuana is the female version of the plant. They are the exact same plant.
Oh,
it's just like a breakage in it. And so hemp is high in CBD and low in THC. Marijuana is high in THC and low in CBD. But they both have it's about 150 different compounds in the plant.
Adrian, thank you for calling and sharing that with us and educating us a little bit here. Thank you very much. The number here, 713-440-8870. We're going to grab Tim next, also calling from Houston. What's on your mind?
Hello. One thing about marijuana use that people don't take into consideration is that it's very hard to do a test for driving impairment with it, like you can with alcohol. It's not a bloodstream type thing that you can easily determine if somebody's not able to drive decently.
Okay, Tim, thank you for that point and for that thought ticket for us there. Moving on, 713-440-8870. Peter is on the line from Northside. Peter, your thoughts?
That's right. Thank you so much. I just think it's a very important topic that people really need to think big picture, because what we hear from the governor in Texas up there at the state capitol, my understanding is they're very concerned about the edibles, like people overdosing because they don't know what they're getting. It's too much. Mm-hmm. However, I would make the point that we actually have quasi-legalization here in Texas, because like the hemp bill from 2018, we're able to buy and go into a store and buy 0.3 THC. So that's THCA. I'm someone who's tried it before, and so THCA works because it basically heats up and it becomes the same as like a street marijuana, or what you may get in, say, for example, Colorado. But my point of saying everything I just said is that really we need legalization. You made a point about tax dollars that we can fight, say, the fentanyl crisis that the president's very concerned about. We can really fight a lot of problems that we have systemic, for example, homelessness. So my point would be completely unscheduled marijuana or cannabis. We currently have it at a Schedule 3. It was at least brought down to Schedule 3 from a Schedule 1.
Good point.
Okay, thank you for that point. I do want to also point out one interesting thing that we have an emergency weather service notice going on right now.
There is a
moment.
severe thunderstorm warning.
Okay.
We are back. Part of the importance of public media is that we do provide these kind of alerts and services to our community. It's one more thing your support of this station ensures we're able to do. Just thought I'd share that with you today in response to news we're seeing all over the place. I want to go back to, we were talking about the hemp, and our last caller brought up a good point, which we hadn't had in our conversation, is that by keeping it legal, you can regulate what people are getting. When it goes back to being just out on the streets, you don't know what people are going to be taking necessarily. So that's a great one. Our number here, 713-440-8870. Karen is on the line from Houston. Karen, your thoughts?
Speaking from a law enforcement perspective, from members of my family that are in law enforcement, they would rather see it legal, one, because that controls it and regulates it, but two, because then they're not spending their time arresting people for something that's this insignificant in the grand scheme of crime.
Karen, great point there. Thank you for sharing. The number here is 713-440-8870. We welcome all comments on this. If you feel differently, give us a call.
Oddly, no one from Hempstead called us.
Oh, anyway,
well,
we'll continue to monitor your responses and share them with you as you get them. Remember, you can mention it in the YouTube if you're watching us live on YouTube in the chat there, or text us, call us, or email us, talk@hellohouston.org.
Coming up on Hello Houston, Officer Ken Nealy, the first vice president of Houston Police Officers Union, joins us to talk about the shortage of officers at HPD and a contract that came down this morning. And we're also taking your calls on any of today's topics at 713-440-8870. This is Hello Houston on News 88.7.
It can be hard to stay informed about what's happening in our city, our state, and across the country. That's why Houston Public Media makes it easier.
Everything you hear on News 88.7 is powered by you, not advertisers. 80% of our funding comes from our Houston community.
That's what makes public media different. It's community funded and always here for you when you need it.
Join that community now at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate or call 888-909-0887.
On the next Fresh Air, shipwreck, mutiny, and murder, we talk with David Gran about his nonfiction book, The Wager, investigating the crash of an 18th century British warship. The survivors sailed thousands of miles to safety on a makeshift boat and faced charges of mutiny. Gran also wrote Killers of the Flower Moon. Join us.
You can hear Fresh Air. It's coming up tonight at 8 p.m.
Support comes from AEG and Hans Zimmer, presenting The World of Hans Zimmer, A New Dimension. A full live orchestra performs scores synchronized with film sequences. September 9th at Toyota Center. More at hanszimmer.com. Support comes from Scan Health Plan, a not-for-profit Medicare Advantage plan that has been dedicated to the health and independence of their members since 1977. More information at scanhealthplan.com.
Houston Public Media brings to you PBS World. Experience the personal connection behind the headlines with programming devoted to telling stories that humanize complex issues. PBS World on TV 8.6 and online at houstonpublicmedia.org.
Support comes from Chariot Energy, delivering a range of electricity options for Texas businesses, large and small, offering custom plans for large businesses and web portal access for the entrepreneurs. Details at chariotenergy.com.
And now back to Hello Houston. To share your thoughts on any of today's topics, call 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now here's Ernie Manous, Celestia Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
Earlier this morning, Mayor John Whitmire announced the details of a new Houston police contract. This comes after months of negotiations with the Houston Police Officers Union. The current contract was set to expire at the end of next month, June 30th. The deal comes as HPD continues to face staffing shortages. The department is short by nearly 1,200 people. To tell us more about the new police contract, we welcome Officer Ken Nealy, first Vice President of Houston Police Officers Union. Officer Nealy, thanks for joining us and welcome to Hello Houston.
Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak on this epic contract by the Houston Police Department. Thank you kindly.
Yes. So why don't we just start with what updates have been made to this new labor contract between the Houston Police Officers Union and the City of Houston?
Yeah, actually, like I say, it was announced, Mayor Whitmire, at a press conference earlier this morning. He announced the resolution of a contract that the management of the Houston Police Officers Union as well as the city have come to an agreement on a 5-year, 36.5% increase contract for the next 5 years.
That's a pretty large increase compared to the last contract that former Mayor Turner had implemented. Why do you think that y'all landed on this 36%? What was that? Why was it so important to make sure that you bumped it up that high?
There were several factors that went into getting this contract done. I actually worked on the last 3 contracts, and the /2 with Mayor Turner prior to him leaving office. We're in a position, typically we have 2.3 million residents in the city of Houston, but on a normal day-to-day basis, we probably have 700,000 additional people traveling through and from within the city for work. Right now, we have a little over 5,200 Houston police officers, and we've kind of gone to a point where we had officers who were graduated from the Houston Police Academy, but leaving our department, going working for other agencies that surprisingly were making more in a yearly salary than our officers were making. Mayor Whitmire, and without the great help of our recently appointed Chief of Police, Noe Diaz, they saw that there was a shortage with our officers and also the financial compensation that they were receiving. So this has really been an epic impact on the recruiting that we'll be able to help make our first-year officers whose starting salary will now be $75,000 a year. In addition, that will help with some of our veteran officers who may have been considering retirement, but I'm pretty sure we've got several phone calls that our senior and veteran officers have shown an extreme desire to continue their employment with the Houston Police Department.
Officer Nealy, why do you think, besides pay, I know you mentioned pay as one of the big factors, but why do you think officers would leave to other police departments besides that pay?
Yeah, I think that was the biggest thing. For you have younger officers, this is more of a calling. And some officers do leave and they go to small agencies where their pay is a huge factor. Most people who are coming out of college, they're looking into the workforce. They're also looking at their salary. And salary is a huge factor for anybody trying to get a job. So guys were getting some incredible training at the Houston Police Department at their academy. And upon graduation, they were going to other agencies where they were making more money.
Are we, this is Frank Billingsley, sir. Are we still short in HPD as far as officers?
Yes, sir. We're a little short. Like I say, we'd like to have another 1,200 officers on our force. Currently, we're a little over 5,200. We have a couple of classes. We have 3 classes actually in the academy right now. One will be graduating next week. City Council has been incredible with us in this effort. I believe we have 5 more classes that are accounted for the next fiscal year. So we're doing a great job with the support for City Council as far as getting the officers. We really believe that with this contract that was just announced, I think they'll be instrumental in getting more officers and more people to apply for our academy.
Yeah, and
for the size of Houston that it is and the square mileage that we encompass, we would love to have more officers. Right? By the studies, that shows we're about 1,200 short than what we need or would like to be.
Right. And I think nobody can argue that we need to make sure we are sufficiently staffing our police department and paying them fair wages. But some might say this isn't maybe the right time to be negotiating deals, given the huge budget deficit that the city of Houston is facing currently. Why do you think it was so important and needed to be done now? And why weren't we ever able to reach this type of increase before?
Yeah, I think there was some financial concerns that were in place and before that prevented us to maybe get the number of officers on the force. That was somewhat of a problem for us. I believe now that Mayor Whitmire, who's previously spent so much time in Senate and in the state level, understands how important public safety is for the city. Mm-hmm. He's really concerned about that. He's made that his priority. That was kind of the platform that he used on his campaign. He's actually walking the walk. So I think his strong desire to address the issues with public safety were at the forefront of getting this deal done.
Officer, if you can take me inside whatever you know into the negotiation rooms, I'm curious, where were the moments where this looked like it could come to be, and who was it? What side helped usher this along? How do we know any of the nuts and bolts of the making of this agreement?
This is the great thing about this negotiating team. You have the executive board from the Houston Police Officers Union, and also the executive board from starting with Executive Chief Thomas Hart, mm-hmm. And also Deirdre Norbers and Ursula Williams. It's been it was never adversarial. Everybody understood the needs of the department on the labor side and also the management side. So it was never where it was contentious or cantankerous or adversarial. Mm-hmm. We all understood that the concept and the goal was to get a very comprehensive package for our officers. So it was never really a point where we were at issue. I've been in 2 previous contract negotiations where I couldn't say that was the same.
Yeah.
But in this contract, it went very smoothly. It was very seamless.
So I would assume then the union says they're happy with how this has come out, that you pretty much are where you want to be and the city is pretty much where they want to be.
Yes, sir. I mean, everyone is happy. We've on the executive board, we've got numerous calls and emails from our rank and file officers, and some are even contemplating whether they're going to retire. You know, everyone in all support, the phone calls and emails and texts that we receive, is that, and overwhelmingly, everyone has been extremely excited about the contract that we put together for folks.
What we often hear about when we talk about the unions for both police and fire, it always goes to the pension plan. Does this have anything to do with any of that? Are we in good shape there?
Yeah, we're in great shape there. Like I said, this is some of the things mechanisms that we put in place that helps the officers long term as far as their pension. So I think we're in a really great position where we are for our officers and their family. This is an epic contract for the city as their officers.
You know, this is a big win, Officer Nealy, clearly for police officers in Houston. But what other support do you think, besides pay, police officers need here in Houston? And I'm thinking more on the lines of mental health support and counseling and maybe even some de-escalation type training. Is there any thought process behind that?
You know, HPD, we are probably one of the leading agencies in the state as for providing de-escalation training, mental health training. We have a lot of mechanisms in place that assess not only our officers, but also some of the victims of the crime, some of the violent crimes that have taken place in a city that our officers are investigating. We have a lot of resources that we're able to provide our officers as well as some of the victims and some of the crimes that we decided to investigate.
For folks that are listening right now, to take you back a little bit to the number of potential police officers we have coming up, if I gave you a moment to sell a career in law enforcement to some of our listeners right now, why would you encourage them in this day and age, at this point in time, to consider this career?
First of all, this is my 30th year on the Houston Police Department. I've enjoyed every second and every day of my career, and this is a calling. I'm a native Houstonian. And there are so many native Houstonians that are here. We often hear people that thank us for our service. Mm-hmm. This is the opportunity for some of those people that are Houstonians that really want to make an impact, make our city the epicenter of the United States. We're probably the most diverse city in the United States. Mm-hmm. This is a city that everybody wants to be at and live at and work at. So any young individual that thinks they want to make a positive change as far as the city of Houston, I think this is the excellent opportunity to come and make a change and make an impact for the city.
Oftentimes in today's day and age, when we hear about police officers or police forces, it's often there is a negative slant to it. In the city of Houston, you're talking about we have a good sense of training for de-escalation and things like that. For folks who feel like police service is not where it should be, what would you recommend to your fellow officers, but also to people's interactions with people in uniform? What can we do for the harmony to either grow or to stay or to continue?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things that are in place that we already have. We have an outstanding community relations with our Houston Police Department as well as the citizens. We have a lot of programs for our community service where our officers are involved in the community. We actually have a Houston Citizens Police Academy where people actually get into our police academy and they go through some of the training. They go through the firearms training. They go through some of the confrontation scenes. They are taught how to fire weapons. So I think that kind of gives people an insight on some of the dangers that officers deal with on a day-to-day basis, and then just some of those common things that the officers deal with. They give a very good insight on what our officers deal with, and I think sometimes with that knowledge and the opportunity to see what our men and women do on a day-to-day basis, that really gives them a newfound respect and admiration for what our men and women do on a day-to-day basis.
Officer, thank you very much for joining us.
Officer Ken Nealy is the first Vice President of Houston Police Officers Union. Coming up, weekend plans and special guest Jonathan Van Ness.
A sad note, local musician Scott Gertner has died, one of our favorite people here at Houston Public Media. The announcement was made Thursday night by his family through a publicist. Quote, "We are deeply saddened today to share the news of the unexpected passing of Houston entertainment icon Scott Gertner. Our family is heartbroken and still processing this sudden loss. We appreciate your expressions of love and kindly ask for privacy as we navigate this difficult time. Funeral details will be shared soon." If you knew Scott, you know that you were always the most important person in the room as he came up to you and usually gave you a big hug and a handshake and welcomed you to the party. He was best known for his series of popular Houston clubs. My favorite always was Sky Bar.
Yeah.
Watching the full moon rise from Sky Bar over the city, I'll never forget it as long as I live. He also had Scott Gertner's Sports Bar Live and Scott Gertner's at Houston Pavilions. An all-around great guy and great friend, and certainly our thoughts go out to his family.
He will be sorely missed.
Support comes from Rice University's Kinder Institute for Urban Research annual luncheon, May 19th, celebrating its 15th anniversary and sharing findings from the 44th Kinder Houston Area Survey. Tickets at kinder.rice.edu.
Hi, I'm Craig Cohen, the host of Houston Matters. Join me weekday mornings at 9 or at your leisure on your podcast feed for your daily guide to the people, places, issues, and ideas that define Greater Houston. From politics to the economy, energy to the environment, healthcare to education to transportation and beyond. If it matters to Houston, it matters to us. Check us out wherever you get your podcasts or live on the air weekdays at 9 a.m. right here on News 88.7.
Imagine two friends getting together.
So what's happening in Congress?
Well, this is something that is going to be tough to defend in an election year. And that's assuming it even passes, which it might not.
Imagine you could listen in.
And then what about the Senate? The bills are just rocketing out of the chamber.
Have they gone too far? The House might say, well, wait a minute.
Well, you can. Party Politics with Brandon Rottinghouse and Geronimo Cortina. Fridays at 7:30 p.m. on News 88.7, at 8 on TV8, and on your favorite podcast platforms.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on any of today's topics, call 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now back to Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
We're back. Hello, thunderstorms. We have that warning. Also just issued for Austin, Brazos, Burleson, Colorado, Fort Bend, Grimes, Harris, Houston, Liberty, Madison, Montgomery, Polk, San Jacinto, Trinity, Walker, Waller, and Washington, a severe thunderstorm watch from now until 8 p.m. And we do have that warning. So watch out. The good news is the weekend's going to end up being really nice once we get through all of this, which we will get through I don't know what you're doing. I'm going to Galveston.
Well, if you're on the road, be safe.
Yeah, I'm going to see my friends. My friends that stayed at the White Lotus Hotel in Italy.
Oh, really?
Yes, we're going to
well,
dinner.
we expect a full
so
report on
Well,
Monday.
I know. It was her birthday. It was her at Christmas for her birthday present. So her birthday was last Saturday. And so we're going to find out all about that.
Find out if anybody died at the hotel while she was
hopefully
there.
Hopefully they show up for dinner. Then another dinner party tomorrow. And then I'm going to be going to the Little Readers Fiesta, which is part of the Barbara Bush Literary Foundation.
Nice.
That's on Sunday afternoon. So I'm supporting that on Sunday.
Oh, that's great.
How about you?
Tonight I have dinner with friends. Yeah, it's so weird. We run around, we do so much, and then we're home in our lives. And very rarely, you do this more, Frank, than anyone I know, get together with friends for just dinner. I just find that that's such a luxury, and I never get to do it. It's some sort of event, some sort of party, or hiding out at the house to
We're doing that
regenerate.
Saturday night, actually.
You're hiding out in the house?
In our friend's house, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
6 of us for dinner.
Yeah,
Nice.
so we're going to do dinner with friends tonight. Tomorrow night, it's the Catastrophic Theater Gala.
Oh, fun.
My partner, Walt, is a member of their company, and so he's going to be telling campfire stories for an adult audience. I have no idea what those stories are going to be, nor do I think I want to hear them. But Catastrophic Theater, it's a great theater here in town, and so they're going to have their annual gala, which is never like a gala you think of. This whole thing's being done like a camp out. So it's out in the yard and all this stuff. You find out stuff in there.
While you guys are at galas, I'll be at T-ball tomorrow morning.
Oh, fun.
But you have to get up early for that.
8:30.
Might be a wet field.
But once you become a parent, waking up at 8:30 is not.
That's a luxury,
early. That is a luxury. Yeah.
One more on mine. On Sunday, I have to lock myself in the house and do work. I have to study because Tuesday night I am interviewing Amor Tolles, the famed author, wrote Gentleman in Moscow and a whole bunch, for Performing Arts Houston at Jones Hall up on stage. So I got to get smart.
You got to get smart
So
real quick.
I got to spend the whole day prepping up for that. So that's going to eat up my weekend. What else are you doing on the weekend, Celeste?
I'm going to hang out with some friends, and
Yeah.
it'll be very chill. I like
Trouble.
to keep, that will be trouble. I like to keep my weekends pretty low key. That's my time. That's kind of, I get that downtime with the kiddos. And
Yeah.
The
fun.
kiddos.
Sit outside with my neighbors.
That's fun.
It is so much fun.
It is going to be a beautiful weekend. We just got to get through today and tonight, so be careful for
get
the
through.
storms.
If you don't follow Celeste on social media, you would believe what she's saying about how she just always has quiet time. You do so much, Celeste, and you can see it all on her social media. Check that out.
Oh my gosh. Well, if you are looking for, thanks for that plug, Ernie. If you are looking for something to do on today, you can check out the Houston African Art Festival. The event takes place at a venue at 2509 Alabama in the historic 3rd Ward, and it will have a live performance by DJ Towie, art exhibitions, and culinary delights, and a lot more.
On Saturday, Billy
I'm
Idol.
excited about this one.
Billy Idol?
Fun.
In concert.
I mean, at the Cynthia Woods Mitchell Pavilion, and again, the weather's going to be terrific.
Yeah.
Would it be a good day for a white wedding?
Okay, today Frank sang, and now you sing. What is happening? What?
It's because it's hemp day.
Make it make sense.
That's not
Make it
all
make
that's in town this weekend. Who is also Saturday night?
Joan Jett and the Blackhearts.
It's like our high school days
It
again,
all starts
Frank.
at 7:30, and it's part of his It's a Nice Day to Tour Again.
Tour again.
Nice. And on Sunday, it's Star Wars Day.
May the 4th be with you.
You can celebrate at the Children's Museum Houston with their May the 4th Be With You event, where kids can design their own spaceships, make their own lightsabers, and much more. The event is from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And I tell you what, the Children's Museum of Houston does a fabulous job with their events. It is always so much fun.
Well, also, in addition to all that, if you're a film buff, this is a good weekend for you, too. The classic film, which I have not seen in years, and I'm so excited
I love
about
it. Warren
this.
Beatty.
The
and his,
1967 film Bonnie and Clyde, Gene Wilder's first film appearance, is going to be at the Museum of Fine Arts in Houston. It's being presented to honor the passing of two-time Oscar winner Gene Hackman, who was also in the film.
You know, I saw that in 1967 when it was released.
In the movies?
Yes, I was 7.
Wow.
I was 7 years old.
Wow.
Why was it the violence in that film for a 7-year-old today?
Oh, my God.
That was before the ratings. Before we had.
Well, I'll
Yeah.
tell you
Rex,
Right.
general, mature,
R and
yeah.
PG and the
That was
My
long before-
horrible film story is on Christmas night as a child. my dad took us to see The Deer Hunter.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
That was, you wonder why I'm the way I am today.
I think that explains a lot.
How did Bonnie and Clyde make me such a fabulous young man?
And Deer Hunter made me this. Well, that's a great movie to see, and it's just it's a masterpiece. And it's nice that we get to still see some of these revival films. Seeing them on television, seeing them online is not the same thing as seeing them in a theater on the big screen.
Oh, Mr. Gorgeous just showed up. Look at him.
I've been here all day. What are you talking about? Okay, those are our last-minute plans and some of the last-minute plans for your weekend. But we have a special guest joining us now to share their weekend plans. It's Emmy-winning television personality, hairstylist, podcaster, actor, author, and activist, known as the grooming expert from Netflix Queer Eye, the one and only Jonathan Van Ness. Hello, Jonathan.
Hi, everybody. You know, I just learned this new phrase on my podcast called multi-passionate entrepreneur, which I was like, that's such a faster way to say like all the things I do. I'll just say that from now on.
Then I'll stop stumbling over all of them.
No, you did so good. You did so good. Thanks so much for having me, you guys. I'm so excited to be here.
You keep very busy. I want to start off with the lead before we get into everything else. Your weekend plans involve Houston.
Honey, I'm about to hit up on a road trip. I live in Austin, but I'm about to head out of the house to go down to Houston. I'm going to hit up a couple Buc-ee's on the way, get a couple snacks. I'm so excited. We're going to get down with our bad selves. But yeah, I'm playing the Houston Improv this weekend. So I'm going to be at the Houston Improv tonight for 2 shows, and I'm going to be at the Houston Improv tomorrow night for 2 shows. I'm going to hit up the Solid Core tomorrow morning in Houston. So I already got my whole weekend planned out, and it's got the Buc-ee's, the Solid Core, and the Houston Improv. So it's a triple win.
Okay, there's a lot of folks who know you from your podcast, know you from Queer Eye, know you seeing you on TV and stuff. The stand-up element I wasn't familiar with in your wide range of work. What do we get from a Jonathan stand-up?
You get probably the fullest bodied, like, you know, there's like different coffee strengths, you know, like it's like the 60s, like the 4, the flavor and the boldness. The stand-up comedy, honey, you're getting the boldness, the acidity, the flavor. It's all on max. It's all on 4. It's very, I think it's the most, I think I feel in stand-up probably the most like full version of myself, because I get to, like, you know, Queer Eye, obviously, like I'm myself there and I give so much to the show. But then once you leave, it's like, I don't edit the show. It's not like I like package that, you know, and the podcast, it's like, you know, trying to learn. And it's not necessarily the place for me to like process my feelings on the state of the world. Whereas the stage is like, I just get to unleash and be just all of the levels of myself, and it's really fun.
How do you look at it differently, putting together your stand-up as opposed to writing a book? Are they the same things for you, or do you really approach them differently?
I approach it really differently. I think, well, actually, now that I think about it, that's such a good question. They actually kind of both start from an outline. Usually I have an idea and I start with an outline of like what I'm trying to cover. And then from that outline, I fill out, you know, beginning, middle, end, and what I want to do. My last tour, which was called fun and I don't know if I can say it. Sometimes you can't say it.
Good holds.
If you have to ask, probably better you don't.
So my last special was like I really knew what I wanted to cover, but it became like this adult kind of, the bit there was that I was your teacher. I was Professor Jonathan Van Nasty, and it was like an adult sex ed class was what that special was, what that hour was.
This time you're hot and healed, though.
Yeah, this is hot and healed. And so this one is more about like me coming to terms with and processing the election, what's happening for the next 4 years. It's about trying to create a safe space for people to come together and experience joy. Because I do think that experiencing joy right now is so incredibly important, because if you're not at all having joy, then you're really not going to be able to be engaged in the world around you. And so I do think that's part of like why comedy is so important, for us to like let our hair down and have some fun, so that you can like be restored enough to like want to be engaged. So it's a tall order right now for queer people, but we're doing it.
Hey, you know, this is Frank Billingsley, and the cool kids get to call you JVN, right?
That's true. That's true. They do.
Okay, JVN. I loved your book, Gorgeously Me. It was the book we all wish we had growing up gay, right? Talk a little bit about that, the reaction to it. Give people a brief synopsis of what it is and why you wrote it.
Well, it's kind of a really funny story. So I wrote a children's book called Peanut Goes for the Gold in 2020.
Yep.
It came out like the week of the pandemic. So like not the best, not that the pandemic lasted a week, but it was like May 20th. It was like not a fun time to like promote. You couldn't like be like, go to Target. It's like, don't leave your house. But anyway, so Peanut Goes for the Gold, I was obsessed with. It was about a non-binary rhythmic gymnast guinea pig. So it did okay. But then my book team was like, Queen, that was like, it was fun, but it was like a little niche. And I was like, what was niche about that? That was so broad blanket, like non-binary rhythmic gymnast guinea pig. What are you talking about? Like, if that doesn't speak to the masses, I just don't know what does. And they were like, girl, can you just please just try to do something that speaks to like not so niche. And I was like, oh, okay, I see what you're saying now. So then with Gorgeously Me, I was like, let me try to kind of create that spirit of honoring people's, because I do truly believe what makes our country and our culture so rich and interesting is our diversity. It's the things that make us different, and then sharing space with people that are different. Like, that's what makes us so strong, and that's like why we've accomplished so much in our country, and by being together, and so and honoring each other's differences. So I wanted to be able to speak to that in a way that could reach the most people, and so that's really what Gorgeously Me is about. It's about just honoring people for who they are and celebrating people for who they are. And I think that's like such an important lesson for young people to hear.
Yeah, it sounded like Dr. Seuss meets gay Queer Eye.
Well, I was going to say, I'm going to call you JVN. My son, who's 4, would probably absolutely love that book. So I just wanted to let you know that sounded very
Thank
fun.
you.
Absolutely. And we want to remind everybody that you're listening to Hello Houston, and we're speaking with Jonathan Van Ness. JVN.
For the cool kids.
For the cool kids.
Jonathan, folks that are just listening on the radio can't see this. Those that are watching us on YouTube can. Behind you is a bulletin board. Is that a vision board, or is it just collection of things in your life?
This is a lot of my JVN hair stuff. So it's like, it's always changing, but this is usually where I'm like staging, like if I'm casting models, if I have like a new shoot that's coming out, if I'm trying to like ideate something. So it is a vision board, but it's like very hair specific.
So it's your hair vision.
It's my hair vision board, because JVN hair, it's like, that takes a lot of my time. Like I'm working hard on that hair care line over there. It's a lot.
I want to talk a little Queer Eye and the difference between original Queer Eye and then your guys' Queer Eye, and what you think needed to move forward in it, and why we needed a program like that when we brought it back.
Well, I think we still do need it. And I think that ultimately, the Queer Eye for the Straight Guy, which was from 2003 to 2007, so important, so revolutionary, so groundbreaking. It was like the first show where I ever saw gay men on TV, it represented in like a positive light. I guess I saw Rudy Galindo win the U.S. National Figure Skating Championships in 1996, but it was sparse, where we got to see like gay men shine. And so I think that was really important in the first one. I got to watch it with my grandparents, with my parents, and I think that really shifted the paradigm in a massive way. Then I think when Queer Eye came back, we, dropped For the Straight Guy from the reboot. We got to do, more people's makeovers, not just straight men, and or just not just men, excuse me. And so that was I think just a more inclusive, necessary change, because it's exciting to get to do more people. And I think the reason we need it is we need more possibility models. We need more straight people seeing other versions of people. We need queer people seeing possibility models in so many different ways, because we've had incredible queer people on our show outside of ourselves. I think about like Jessica Gilbo from season 3, strong black lesbian woman. She's like incredible, her episode and her example. I think about Skylar from like season 2, incredible trans man in Atlanta. So there's possibility models and examples of incredible people from so many different walks of life. And I think that seeing that we're not alone in our struggles and the things that we're struggling with is like so humanizing. And also, like, without shows like, Great British, oh no, what happened? My mic, there we go. And Great British Bake Off, sometimes we need some like comforting TV, like God, like, and sometimes we need gay people in it. So yeah.
Okay, Jonathan, my last question for you is, what's making you smile today?
Oh my gosh. What? Well, I was so excited that cute little dachshund in Australia, that couple accidentally took out camping, and then it like ran away on Kangaroo Island, and then it was gone for 526 days. They found it. And I was really stressed out, you guys, when they said that they found it, but they hadn't like gotten it back home yet. I was like, maybe don't report on it yet. Okay. Like until that like dachshund is like back at home, can we just like, because if I get all attached to this freaking wiener dog and then it gets eaten by a dang Komodo lizard or dragon or something on this kangaroo island, I'm just gonna be devastated. But it's back home. It did not get eaten. They found it. And they found it by using one of the owner's shirts. And so I was like, oh, I like my So I'm so happy that dachshund's okay. And also what's making me smile is coming to Houston, honey.
Good answer. I was waiting for that
That's
one.
right. Jonathan Van Ness is the grooming expert.
The Bucky's nuts. I love you guys.
Yes, the grooming expert on Netflix Queer Eye and the host of Getting Curious with Jonathan Van Ness. Jonathan, thank you for joining us on Hello Houston. Jonathan will be performing at Houston Improv tonight, May 2nd, and tomorrow, May 3rd. That brings us to the end of the week of Hello Houston. We want to thank you for listening. We were back on Monday with more conversations. This is News 88.7, and have a great weekend.
Thanks for listening to Hello Houston. Join us every Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. to talk all things Houston. The Hello Houston production team includes Garrett Bowman, William Menjivar, Jen Altide, Todd Holslander, and Jim Kovacic. For the latest in local news, subscribe to the Hello Houston daily newsletter at houstonpublicmedia.org. Hello Houston is a production of Houston Public Media. The opinions expressed by the guests of this program are solely their own and do not represent the views of management, staff, or underwriters of Houston Public Media. This is News 88.7.
Support comes from John Moore, helping with plumbing, electrical, and air conditioning repairs, including out-of-warranty units since 1965.